Here is a quote from the article that I wrote with Leonie. Theory of change is important for decision making as both practitioners and clients have explicit and implicit views about how the problems develop and how they see change occurring. Where did I get this idea from? Well, this very well-known book that's called the Leeds Systemic Family Therapy Manual. If you're sitting here today and you have not heard of the Leeds Systemic Family Therapy Manual, get online, it's free, download it, and it is like a 101 manual. And so it's used for research, and it has also been used less formally for training, supervision, and upskilling family therapists. And that's the way that I've been using it for 15 plus years as a family therapist. I've been in mental health for 25 plus years. Now, in the Leeds manual, they have this diagram that's around theory of change. How does change happen? And there is a cybernetic pathway, which is our first generation schools, changing patterns of behaviour. And we have then our narrative meaning-making pathway. And what is that? That's our postmodern ways of working, right? Yeah. And when I'm teaching this, then I try to make these complex concepts as accessible as possible. And so we talk about the dance, finding the patterns of behaviour, and a good fit for clients when they come into your office and when you're doing your deep listening is you're listening to the way that they describe what they want from you, and that helps you to understand their theory of change. So when I have clients come into my room and they say to me, Kate, what can we do about this? Something needs to be done. You know, help us to make it something different. Then my deep listening ears go, I think I've got some doers in the room. They want action. They want to change patterns. Okay, I have to now rummage around in my toolkit to pick the tools that are going to fit for their theory of change. Or perhaps I have people in front of me in my room and they go, Kate, why is this happening? I don't get it. What's going on? How do we make sense of this? And then I go, I got a meaning maker in my room. That's probably their theory of change. They need to understand something to get some movement happening. And so this is how I've been teaching theory of change for a very long time. If you're interested, I have a blog article on this. I write blog articles for professionals, but I also write a lot of articles for the family therapy, or just for the community, which was our panel discussion this morning, right? Getting this out, making it more mainstream, making it more accessible. And so you're welcome to jump online and grab that, and it's a great resource for your clients as well. At the end of today, if there's no questions, which would be great, I have a slide I can put up which gives prompts so you can reflect on your own theory of change if that's something you've never thought about before. But this is the thing, and I loved what Paul Rhodes said this morning. He said, but where are we heading? He goes, I'm excited for the future, so, what does that look like? And then I was thinking, thank God he said that this morning, because now I can present my idea to you and not be so worried about it, because I've been, over the last 5 years plus, sitting there thinking, but what if the reason that a family keeps repeating a stuck pattern isn't just because of the sequence of the loop? What if it's because their nervous systems are locked in survival states, and so learning new behaviours are impossible? And then I've been thinking, and what if a family's not stuck because their story is rooted in belief, but in biology? What if their prefrontal cortex is offline and they're in their emotional limbic system, and so those old narratives feel like truth and new meanings just feel unreachable, unattainable? And so then I was thinking, yeah, because when I'm in my room and I'm sitting across from someone, sometimes they might say, what do we do about this? And sometimes they might say, what is going on? But I have a lot of families that come in my room and what they say is, we are just so overwhelmed. And oh my gosh, we are so numb and we're shutting down. And so when I'm thinking about that and I'm thinking about family therapy, I'm like, okay, what's the pathway of change for that? Now, half of you in the room, maybe more, you might be sitting here going, yeah, okay, Kate, but dysregulation can be a cybernetic pattern too, you know. Person A gets anxious, person B shuts down, person A escalates, and that's how it loops and maintains the problem. You're absolutely right. I don't want to fight you on that. Okay. Then also, people are saying, might be thinking in their minds, dysregulation can be explored through a narrative lens. How people make meaning of bodily experiences, externalizing this dysregulation, identifying those unique outcomes or times when the family was regulated and calm. And I say, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm not going to fight you on that. It's the both and. In the family therapy community, we've had a calling for a long time. This is a quote from 2007. Indeed, a truly multisystemic perspective is biopsychosocial. Interpersonal neurobiology adds a rich perspective that can contribute to this process. Yes, I agree, but I want to take it one step further. So my concept that I would love to propose to you today is actually to think about changing the theory of change model that's in the Leeds manual to include a neurobiological pathway. The body is a system. So it's not just sequences, it's not just stories, it's also state as well. Because our internal physiological state shapes the capacity for us to participate in interactions, to participate in reflective meaning making. And good old Bateson, maybe it's the body that is the difference that makes the difference, right? And each family member brings a nervous system into the room. Aldo, who was in Aldo's presentation yesterday, yeah? And what Aldo said was in his couple work, when one person in the couple gets into a bad mood, the other person in the couple gets into a bad mood. And that is because everything's contagious, even what's happening within us, right? The other thing, and this just blows my mind, if we unraveled the DNA cells in our body and laid them out linearly, it would cover 150 billion kilometres. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. And so the body is a system that I think as family therapists we could be paying more attention to in the room. So this is where I want to land, is that, and this is 2013, so still it's a fair while ago, but arguing that a systemic approach to recent advances in cognitive neuroscience involves locating neuroscience psychotherapy dialogue in the broader framework of systems theory, rather than selectively applying it to the work that we do as an add-on. And so the quote in green, the fundamental point that we'd like to offer here is that neuroscience is systemic. Not because findings may be appropriate to the work that we're doing, but because the brain, and I would go on to say the body, is a complex, adaptive, self-organising system. And so I would love for us to be able to recognise neurobiology as a distinct systemic pathway of change, not just an optional add-on. Now, just to say as well, these are not mutually exclusive. When you change a pattern of behaviour, you make sense. When you make meaning of something, it leads to action. And it's the same when we regulate, etc. So they're not mutually exclusive. We can dip and dive all over the place. Now, point number 5, Helen Pote is one of the researchers and authors of the Leeds Systemic Family Therapy Manual, and she has stated in an interview, the manual will continue to evolve and cannot remain static. So I think she would be fine with me presenting this today. And perhaps the aim should be multiple context-specific manuals. So therefore, perhaps this idea is helpful for some of you, and perhaps this idea is not helpful for some of you too, and that's okay. These are the questions I am asking in my assessment because I want to understand the client's theory of change. I know what my theory of change is. I know what my preferences are in terms of family therapy, but I can't apply that to everybody. And so I'm saying things like, what has led to positive change in your lives previously? How have you overcome difficulties in the past? Do you need to understand something fully before you try something different? Or do you just figure it out as you go? Or is it a feeling that you get? Now, all of these questions, you might actually be asking them, but for different reasons. They're really great exception-finding questions here, etc. Yeah? And yes, I'm asking these questions for those reasons, but ultimately I want to hear their theory of change. I want to understand how they experience change. Is it action, reflective, or a felt sense of safety? And then I'm asking myself, and what part does the client expect me to play in this change process? And do I have the skills for that? And so part of then my clinical judgment would be walking myself through these questions. Is the system safe and regulated enough to engage in insight or behavioural change? What's most useful now, a regulating presence, a pattern disruptor, or a story deconstructor? Where is the system most open to change right now, and what tells me that? But these are all the things I have to mindfully, intentionally, thoughtfully work through to decide on the very unique offering that I'm going to give. And so that is the end of the presentation. Thank you.